Welcome to this video where we have the pleasure of hearing from the legendary Jim Rohn, renowned entrepreneur, motivational speaker, and author. In this talk, Jim will be sharing his insights on how to become financially unstoppable. He believes that financial freedom is not just about making money, but understanding how to manage it effectively. With his vast experience in business and personal development, Jim will be sharing practical tips and strategies that you can apply to your life to achieve financial success. So sit back, relax, and get ready to learn from one of the greatest minds in personal finance as Jim Rohn teaches us how to become financially unstoppable.
Every American's right, privilege, to become financially independent. So here's my definition of financial independence. The ability to live from the income of your personally invested resources. That's the simple definition. That from the resources you've invested, the income from those resources, you could live. Here's one of the advantages of financial independence. Now you can work or not work. Or you can certainly choose the work to do. Now you can work by choice, not by necessity. And here's one of the best. To be able to work for joy and not for necessity. At first, of course, we have to work for necessity. But if you can finally reach the point where you can work for joy, not for necessity. That happened for me all those years ago. My father kept talking about financial independence, debt-free, no one having a claim on your assets, finally being able to live from the income of your invested resources. I remember the joyful day when that finally arrived. So what I've done now, most of my life, I've had the unique privilege of working for joy, not for necessity. Not that the joy doesn't bring you more income. Not that working for joy doesn't make you another fortune. It certainly has for me, right? Another fortune and another fortune and another fortune. But not because I had to, but because I wanted to. I work now for joy and not for necessity. Key phrase to understand, we should teach this to our children. Economics is major. Everyone has to major in economics. Number one, for personal survival, to produce enough to take care of yourself. The first, economics. The next good phrase on economics, it's not what you earn, it's what you do with what you earn that makes the great difference in your financial future. All of this is determined by your own philosophy. It's important early, and kids have to have a personal philosophy working even when they go to school. Here's a good definition of your personal philosophy. A guidance system. And it does simply two things. Helps you to see the opportunities, take advantage of those. Helps you to see the dangers, minimize those. And as we learn and grow, we learn hopefully early to spot the dangers so they don't overcome us. Hopefully we learn early to see the opportunities and take advantage of those, maximize them if we can. That guidance system is like a sail on a sailboat. The winds are always blowing, favorable winds, unfavorable winds, stormy winds, economic winds, political winds. The wind is always blowing. But to arrive at a predetermined destination, it is not just the blowing of the wind that we have to deal with. Here's the major part, the set of the sail. The set of the sail is what you learn. Talking to each other, gathering more information, filling up one journal, then another one. Information. Guidance on how to trim the sail, set the sail. The Sunday morning sermon, the lyrics of a song, the dialogue of the movie. Words put into good structure so that they deliver enlightenment, information, knowledge. And we use that to set sail. And it isn't that you set sail once and then that's it and it's over. It is a continual setting of sail every day, every month, every year. Setting sail economically, trimming the sail. For your good health, you just have to set sail toward the destination you wish to reach, having good health. Then it's easy to neglect. Then it's easy to slide. Here's one of the better phrases. Everything by longevity tends to get off course. When the early astronauts made those trips to the moon, on the way to the moon, here's what they had to engage in, mid-course corrections. They look at all the gauges, and some solar winds that they didn't expect has pushed them off course as they look at the gauges. Now they must fire the little rockets to get the spaceship back on course. And it's especially critical if you're headed for the moon. If you're in an airplane and you miss Los Angeles and, make San Francisco, you're okay. But you can't miss the moon. And here's why. If you miss the moon, you can't get back. So just put this little note now. It's a pretty serious note. Some destinations are critical. Speaking of going to the moon, I met Neil Armstrong one time, a little talk he gave. Here's what he said in his little talk. Going to the moon was just a matter of solving a couple of problems. Problem number one, how to get there. And then you just figure that out, how to get there. Problem number two, what? How to get back. That's problem number two, and you just solve that. Now, he said, it's also critical not to leave until you've solved both problems. I thought that was classic. Wow, speeches and information give us so much to chew on. Because you know what I did in some of my enterprises? I figured out how to get in. I didn't figure out how to get out. And some cost me more than I wanted to pay. Just because I, too quickly figured how to get in, did not figure how to get out. Whether it's a lecture like we've engaged in here, hours and hours and hours, or whether it's a simple sermon. Schuler Jr. was giving a classic sermon one morning, and I was privileged to hear it. Here was the notes on his sermon. It's very brief, so I'll give it to you. So jot this down. These are great notes. Here was his sermon. Number one, if you think it's impossible, it isn't. Here was point number two. If you think you know everything, you don't. Point number three. If you think you're alone, you're not. Isn't that a classic? That's a classic sermon. Your philosophy, whether it's your philosophy about economics or your philosophy about marriage or your guidance system about good health, it's easy to get off track. So by longevity, we start, and sure enough, it drifts off course. And that's what sermons are for. And that's what the lyrics of the songs are for in personal conversation, is to get us what? Back on track. And hopefully we're not too far off track so that it doesn't take too long to get back on track. So maybe that's all you needed this weekend. You're doing pretty good, but in a few things you've drifted a little to the right, or you've drifted a little to the left, or just by, a casual approach to some things instead of the serious approach, you're a little bit off track. And it doesn't take that long, if it hasn't gone on too long, to get back on track. But even if it's been a long time, you can start the process overnight. You can start the process. Decision-making this weekend could be some of the most important of your life and your future. Now, your philosophy about money. What about money? What about success? It's a good debate. I've got a good question. It's not necessarily a high moral question, but it's a pretty good question. If you could do better, should you? That's not a bad question. Now, all of us have personal choice, but this is a good question, and a lot of my stuff is up for debate. I don't even claim to be right. If you take all these notes and throw them away and go listen to somebody else, I'll be just as happy. Because, it doesn't matter. As long as you finally, get the ideas that make a difference for you and add to the wealth and the structure of your own life systems. That's what's important. Not that I deliver the message that's all important. But piece by piece and speaker by speaker and teacher by teacher and phrase by phrase and book by book, we pick up the information that helps us to fine-tune our life and our future. But this is a good one for your own debate. If you could do better, should you? When I meet Mr. Shoaff, I'm not in good shape. Here's where I was when I met him. Pennies in my pocket and nothing in the bank. Because the story of the Girl Scout with the cookies had just occurred in my life. And now I meet this man. Here's what he said. Now to get started in a whole new direction, here's what you need to do. You need to develop a financial statement. And a financial statement is very simple. It's a piece of paper with a line down the middle. On this side is the value of all your assets, and over here is all of your liabilities. Here's what you've got in terms of worth, and here's what you owe. And then when you add up all of the value of your assets and you add up all that you owe, called liabilities, we come up with what we call now, finally, when you subtract one from the other, your current net worth. Here's a good place to start. Key phrase, take a picture of where you are. And here's what it's called, the truth. I got to take a picture of where I am. I got to know how good it is, or I got to know what? I got to know how bad it is. I got to know how much I'm on the upside, or how deep a hole am I really in. So this is what I started. It was a simple little program of coming up with my current net worth. My liabilities, that was easy. I owed my parents, I owed. I made the third borrowing on my car, and he was threatening to come and get it, drag it down the road, rear end up in front of my neighbors. So I had plenty of liabilities. On the asset side, I put my furniture even. I put everything I could think of. My shoes. I mean, wouldn't the Salvation Army give me $2 for my shoes? I mean, I am scrambling. And when I did this exercise, guess what it did? It really soberly gave me a current picture of where I was. And guess what? I was unhappy. But here's what's important about the truth. It sets you free. Number one, free to correct old errors in judgment. That's what the truth is for, to correct old errors. After 6 years, I started working when I was 19. And when I took a picture of where I was, it was not a very happy experience. So now, where do we go from here? Number one, perhaps a new philosophy. Here's the philosophy usually of the rich and the poor. Poor people spend their money and invest what's left. Here's usually the philosophy of the rich. The rich invest their money and spend what's left. It's just a little turn of semantics. But the little turn of semantics is like the turn of the set of the sail that takes you in a whole different direction to wind up at a good place in 1 year, or a place, of average, mundane, where you don't really want to be. Just that little simple shift of philosophy. So here's the key. Think like the rich. Invest your money first, then spend what's left. Don't spend your money and invest what's left. Now the whole key is lifestyle. The money is always there, either to spend or invest. The difference in what you do with it is based on philosophy, not economy. It isn't the state of America's economy that makes the difference. It's the difference in your philosophy, right? That illustration? Here's a book on how to get rich. It costs $20. Somebody says, well, a poor person can't buy that book. I say, no, it's only 7 Coca-Colas. And you either spend the money on the 7 Coca-Colas or a $20 book that teaches how to get rich. So jot this down. Everybody has the money, even the poorest of the poor. The key is how to spend it. The key is what to spend it for and how you spend it. First, how you earn it is determined by your philosophy. Second, now, how you spend it is determined also by your personal philosophy. So what would be a good philosophy to follow? And this is the little simple form I want to give you on financial independence, wealth for the future. Won't take long now to jot this down. It takes a little longer to go do it, but here it is. Never spend more than 70 cents. 70 cents. You've got to pick some number, right? This is the number I've picked. Refine your own to suit you. But I suggest don't spend more than 70 cents. Here's where the other 30 cents goes. 10 cents, 10% of your income for charity, church, supporting worthy projects, teaching children here to become generous. If kids understand generosity, they'll give you 10 cents out of every dollar that they earn. And this is a good place to start. It's easy to give 10 cents out of a dollar. A little more difficult to give 100,000 out of a million. Here's the next 10 cents. Active capital. Try to make a profit. It's called buy and sell. I learned to do this starting at age 25. It's how I made my first fortune. Buying and selling. Active capital means you try to make the profit. Buy a piece of property and improve it and sell it. Keep saving up this active capital until you've got some to work with to buy and sell. Make a profit. Now the third 10 cents is passive capital, which means let somebody else use this 10%. You put this to work and see if you can't make a profit. You are the passive partner in providing the money. They are the active partner in seeing if they can make a profit and pay you dividends and stock increase and interest. And that little formula is a good place to start. Now, you might not really be able to start there. I call this the ideal. Maybe by the time you've heard this, you're in such bad financial shape that you have to go here, 97, 1, 1, and 1. That right now you're in a trap. You're caught. And it's going to take you a while to get out. So right now you got to spend 97% of your income, right, for your living and lifestyle because, you're caught. You're obligated. There's no way out. And then the rest of these now are just 1, 1, and 1. The key is to start with something. Now, Mr. Schoaf gave me a comment. It has served me all these years. Here's the comment. It's not the amount that counts. It's the plan that counts. When I first met him, I said, if I had more money, I'd have a better plan. He said, no, if you had a better plan, you'd have more money. So if you have to, you start with 97, 1, 1, and 1. Then what do? Now comes the project right away of trying to get this 97 figure to go down and these other 3 numbers to start going up. This now becomes an exciting game to play. This is one of the great motivating factors in the world, is to start something and make progress. See, Jim Rohn told us the ideal was 70, 10, 10, and 10. But I can't start there. I've got to start with 97, 1, 1, and 1. And here's what you've got to understand. This is okay. I mean, if this is where you have to start, that's where you have to start. Then you start driving this number down and start driving these numbers up. And it's a whole game to play till finally you can arrive at this pretty good ideal way what to do with the money you earn from a paycheck. Now, when you start getting into the big money, these numbers have to change again. So if you have to, you start here. Get to the ideal. And then when it really starts to flow in your favor, you rearrange this program again, 10%. Because if you're doing big time, you couldn't spend 70% of your income. It would be obscene. So just a little formula to follow. Here's the next one now. This is only a suggested plan. This is not written in any law. Most advantages and benefits for the future are not written in law. There's no law that says you must not have a heart attack. Where is it written? There is no law. That you must demand of yourself. There is no demand that you have a good financial plan that'll safely take care of your family for the future. There is no law. You could be careless and lose it all and finally have to be supported by the state. So there is no law that you must be responsible and have a good financial plan. You must demand it of yourself. So I'm asking you to make that note. It's what we demand of ourselves that counts. There's no law that says you must have a health plan that's going to make you extremely healthy for the next 10 years. There is no law. That you must demand of yourself. And those are the disciplines now that really start to count, the ones you demand of yourself.